Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the National League Natter, and welcome to your weekly preview show. Now, I have had a week off, and Lauren did a stellar job last week hosting. Was that maybe your first time, Loz? Was that your first time as a host?
Doing full hosting, yeah, probably.
How did you find it?
It was good, it was really nice being with Adam. Lovely to do some pod with some new people, but we did miss you here, Aaron. We did miss you.
Yes, I'm back. I just took a week off, but I'm back. I'm re-energized and I'm ready to go. But just a little bit of a congratulations on my behalf. This week, Lauren attended and was up for an award at the Student Radio Awards, and you had to go to the O2 in London, didn't you, for your awards evening? And not only were you up for an award, you also won that award. So first of all, massive congratulations. But do you just want to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit about the awards you won and a little bit about the evening?
Yeah, so not to brag too much, but my student radio station was up for the best sports programming. We ended up being nominated for 10 awards, but the one that was important, the most important for me, was the best sports programming, because I'm head of sports at the radio station, and we ended up winning gold. So it was an awesome night. Consisted of lots of networking, talks, lots of radio hosts chatting. But it was really awesome. So I ended up basically winning gold for my sports programming.
Yes, you did, and I am extremely proud of you. And we came to the realization as well, just before we move on to the show. Next year's conference is being held at my old uni stomping ground, Salford University. There, student radio is called Shock Radio, and I'm an alumni for that radio station. And actually, I have been asked to host the conference next year. So me and Lauren will be working together outside of the company next year, which will be nice. But yeah, just a massive congratulations from me. You know how proud I am of you, and yeah, a massive congratulations on behalf of everyone here at the deck as well for that.
Much appreciated.
But shall we get started on National League action?
Yes, let's do it. That's what we're all here for.
Yes, indeed. So a couple of little bits of news pieces really before we crack on with looking ahead to the games on Saturday. Obviously we've spoke about, Ebbsfleet and Boston kind of being cut adrift, and are they sort of too far adrift? Are one of them going to make like what would be a heroic sort of turnaround of the ship at this point, if we're being honest? Even though it's before Christmas, they're both really in the mire. And Boston have actually took steps to sort of try and rectify that issue and give themselves a fighting chance, because they have appointed a new manager this week in Graham Coughlan, ex-Newport County manager. He's managed some other teams in the EFL. So on paper, it's a very good appointment. But do you think it is like, what are your sort of thoughts and feelings with that? And like, do you think it might be still a little bit too little too late for Boston, given where they currently are and where they currently sit?
I mean, I think, we have talked about them being a fair bit adrift, but I think it's early enough that it could make a massive impact on their season. I think it might be a little bit late, maybe. But I want to give them the best I want them to have a good fighting chance, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a great appointment on paper. Whether it works in practice, we'll see over the coming weeks, definitely. But I think that it's not out of the possibility that could help them stay up this season.
I think the interesting thing is, excuse my dog going mental in the background. Something's just caught his attention quite clearly. But I think the interesting thing about this is normally when a new manager comes into a football club, you tend to have the generic new manager bounce anyway. So I'm sure Boston fans will be hoping for that. And you probably need the new manager bounce not to end from now till maybe February to get them back on level points and in with a fighting chance. But like you say, I think it's a very interesting appointment on paper, and it's one that we'll definitely keep an eye on. And then the second piece of news, I know you touched on it briefly because there was talks about it, but yesterday, the council that help and are in control over Gateshead United's ground finally signed off the lease for their EFL license. And obviously, this was a massive, massive issue for Gateshead at the back end of last season. It actually seen them get disqualified from the playoffs before the playoffs even started, which we all had opinions on, and we thought it was, so unfortunate and damaging. So obviously they've got that issue sorted now, but whether Gateshead will make the playoffs this season is probably a little bit up in the air at the minute because they are in and around them places at the minute, but they are quite inconsistent, I would say. So they still have a little bit of work to do. But obviously, it's great news for the future of the football club and having that little bit of security, isn't it, Lauren?
100%. I mean, I remember the disappointment of the team getting into the playoffs and then just being told that they weren't even able to participate in the playoffs. So hopefully that means now that we can avoid that, because it's hard enough, getting to those places, but to get in there and fight all season to get into the playoffs and then just be told that you couldn't participate. I know it was very hard for a lot of fans and for the team. So it's awesome news for Gateshead that they've got this sorted now.
Yes. So let's look ahead then to what I expect to be a very, very exciting competitive weekend of National League football, shall we? So I'll do what I always do, Lauren. I'll read top to bottom and then we'll recap any that stick out and go from there. So, I mean, talk about a day opener. The first game on the list for Saturday is Rochdale versus my boys, Oldham Athletic at the Crown Oil Arena, and the 12:30 kickoff. Now, this isn't, unfortunately, when we normally have an early or late kickoff, it's normally because it's got TV coverage attached to it. But unfortunately, because of the fan behaviour from both sets of fans last season, the 12:30 is on police advice. That's all there is to it. There's no exciting cameras being rocked up at Crown Oil Arena. It's because neither of our fans can particularly behave themselves when it comes to this fixture. But yeah, so that is a 12:30. That's obviously a very, very big game in terms of them playoff places, and maybe even potentially for Oldham pushing on a little bit higher and trying to chase down that 6-point gap between us and Forest Green currently. Then you have Aldershot versus Altrincham in the first of the 3 o'clocks. Barnet versus Woking, Boston versus Braintree in what could be a massive, again, another massive relegation 6-pointer. Eastleigh versus Wealdstone, who are on some sort of crazy upturn of forms at the minute. And I'm sure Adam was talking very highly of his Wealdstone team on the review show on Monday. Well, I know he was. He wouldn't really shut up about them, but so quite fairly though, we've given him a lot of stick this season, and they're slowly but surely beginning to turn around perceptions, and they're going on a hell of a run, so they probably deserve that credit, I guess. And then you've got Fylde versus Basement Boys, Ebbsfleet United. You have Halifax Town versus Sutton, Maidenhead United versus Gateshead, Solihull Moors versus Hartlepool, fresh off a 6-0 win on last weekend with 10 men as well, might I add.
Crazy game.
That is ridiculous. Southend versus Forest Green, league leaders Forest Green, Tamworth versus Dagenham and Redbridge, and York versus Yeovil. So there's actually no DAZN TV game this week. There's no 5:30. So straight away for me, Lauren, the ones that obviously stick in my mind, I think it would be stupid for me not to touch upon Oldham Rochdale in a little bit more detail because, we've talked about for a good number of weeks now like whether I'm an Oldham fan or not, or I'm just here as like a professional like capacity. I think it'd be stupid for me to not like acknowledge the sort of crazy run and crazy first quarter of the season that Oldham are on. You know, it's now two defeats in 23 games all season, only 2 defeats in the league. We're the only team in the division to score in all but one of the games this season. And look, obviously we'll come to predictions later on, but you had a very wayward prediction last week of a 2-0 Tamworth win. But to be fair to you, I think you was doing that more out of spite and to wind me up than maybe potentially actually could happen. And we put on probably the most professional display of our season so far last weekend with a 4-0 demolition job of Tamworth. And it's a weird one because for us, it's twofold. This game, it's Rochdale are on a bit of a rocky period. There's been talk in the last couple of weeks that maybe Jim McNulty might have upped sticks and gone to Burton. Burton were interested in his services, but he's actually decided to stay with the football club. So obviously they've had that bit of security. But in the meantime, on the pitch, the results have started to become a little bit patchy and a little bit rocky. They lost 2-0 away to Wealdstone last weekend, and I think if there's a time to play Rochdale, it's probably this weekend, especially in the form that we're in. I can't help but go there and really sort of fancy us to do the job and do it quite comfortably and professionally. And I think if you look at Rochdale's Twitter, I know a lot of what Rochdale fans are saying. A lot of them are hoping and praying that the ice and the snowy conditions this week aid the game off, because I think a lot of Rochdale fans are expecting Oldham to win as well. But having said that, I'd be stupid to dismiss Rochdale completely because it is a derby, you know. Like, form kind of goes out the window at derby day. All it takes is one bad challenge early doors, and then the ref could send a player off from either side, and then it's a completely different game, you know. Anything can happen. But sort of, what is your sort of take on that game and that derby day, and who do you want to?
Yeah, I think I mean, like you say, derby days are just so different, right? Like the atmosphere in the ground changes it compared to like any other game that they're going to face this season. And I think like it's a very exciting game because both teams are in the playoffs at the moment and quite happy in there. I think it's going to be, I genuinely think it's going to be a really interesting game. If I was going to back either side, I probably would go Oldham, and we'll talk more about, I'm known for rambling on about why I think these things. But I think that like Rochdale, they're just at the moment, they're so inconsistent. So I would agree if I was going to face them at any point, the inconsistency at this stage sort of is literally been loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like it's going to be a good game, I think. I think it's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one that I'm excited for. And I said to Lauren, obviously, with the police bringing it forward, that means that I'm going to go with my friend on Saturday, and we're going to be in the pub from early doors and soak up the atmosphere from early doors. And I always look forward to playing Rochdale, not just because we have a relatively good recent record against them, but also I just like derby days. I like the games with sort of extra sort of passion and fire. I think, you know, it's always an interesting one. But also looking at the rest of the league then for a second, because I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more again later on in the podcast. But I think another one that sticks out for me without a doubt is Boston and Braintree. We've just talked about Coughlan going in at the Boston job. Can he get his first 3 points on the board? How vital is it for him to get his first 3 points, or if not, arrest the sort of slide and get a point on the board in his first sort of game in charge? But Braintree are proving to be, obviously they're not pulling themselves totally clear out of that danger zone yet, but they're proving to be fighters. I think we said that one of these bottom 5, bottom 6 teams will be up for a fight, and Braintree, although they're not probably clear yet and they could quite easily still drop in it, they are at least trying to put up a little bit of a fight and showing signs of promise. So I think that's a really interesting battle. I mean, I think if you're Boston, you're looking at this league table now and you're thinking, you know, new managers come in. We are already 7 points adrift with a -8 worse off goal difference. So, and Braintree are 8 points clear of them. So it is kind of a must win at this point, isn't it, for Boston?
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully we can see that new manager bounce and see it lift up the Boston team. But I think I always get pleasantly surprised about Braintree's results. They always seem to pull one out when they need to, when it matters the most. I mean, they've won their last 2, which is keeping them out of that relegation zone at the moment. Yeah, I also think this is going to be a really interesting one. There's lots of battles at the top and lots of battles at the bottom this week, and I think that's I think it's going to be very interesting to see whether the new manager for Boston can bring a bit of oomph to the team and sort of bring some passion back.
How important is it for a new manager? Like, obviously they're on the right side of Christmas, really. If this was January and Boston had done it, I'd think that this absolutely reeks of desperation and they're probably not going to be able to claw it back anyway. But the one saving grace for Coughlan is that he is on the right side of January. He might have, a little bit of a squad reshuffle in January, depending on if there's any finances available. But how important is it to try and lay down a bit of a momentum and a bit of consistency ahead of that January window?
Oh, it's I think it's so important, right? Like, especially because obviously the fans at the moment probably aren't the happiest with where Boston are in the league. And you want to be able to get behind your new manager straight away. And I think if you've got rid of one that has been getting you losses, to get a new one that you're still losing under can be even more demoralizing.
Yeah.
Because at that point your fan base is like, well, what else can we do? So I think it's super important for the team and for the fans and the whole club atmosphere to really try and lay down a solid base at this point. And then especially because if you're getting some decent results out of your team, or even if they're not results but performances, it means that they can
hold on to.
Then they can also know exactly where they need to improve in the January. Whereas if the whole team is still struggling, then it's a little bit harder. So I think it's mega important.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. Just moving on into some other games that are sticking out to me. I am interested to see, we've got sort of two teams battling in sort of complete opposite form in the form table in the division in Eastleigh and Wealdstone. I'm really sort of intrigued to see how long Wealdstone can keep this sort of streak up for and how sort of much daylight they can put themselves, and drag themselves towards safety, because Eastleigh have got the ingredients to be a good team. We've seen that early doors in this season, but they've just kind of fell off a cliff in the last maybe 4 or 5 weeks. And, we talked about playing Rochdale maybe at a bad run of form, but if we think Rochdale are in a bad run of form, then I don't know what we would say about Eastleigh. But yeah, so I think if you're an Eastleigh, if you're an Eastleigh fan, you're looking at that game and being potentially worried. But if you're a Wealdstone fan, you're looking at that game, licking your lips at a potential another 3 points, aren't you?
100%. I completely agree with all of that. I mean, I remember right at the beginning of the season, Eastleigh were right up at the top of the league, sort of really competing right at the top. And yeah, they've had a bit of a shocker recently. They're literally as inconsistent as you can get. 6 wins, 6 draws, 6 losses. Like there's no sort of, there's no sort of consistency there. But I think that that's going to be a really interesting game. There's always some people might say I always say that games are going to be interesting, but they are. Like, it's the National League, all the games are interesting.
Every game has some sort of intrigue and interest for sure.
Exactly.
And just on a little bit of a tangent, but I almost feel like I'm in a little bit of a movie right now, because I'm recording this, we're talking about teams, and it has just opened and just started to properly snow here in Manchester. as I'm recording. It feels like, it looks like one of them cheesy Christmas films that you see on Channel 5.
Oh.
Like, it's crazy. But yeah, so I'm indoors, nice and warm. I'm thankful I'm not out there right now. But I am looking at this weather and I'm thinking, I know it's 2 days before the game, but I'm thinking, I hope Rochdale have got them covers on that pitch. Because at this point, I think the fans and I think maybe some of the players might be wishing for a postponement. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, but yeah, I love the snow. Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. So back to what we were saying, I think another one that I'm really interested to look at is, obviously you've got Southend versus Forest Green. Now, if I'm being honest, this is a game I fancy Forest Green in quite comfortably, if I'm being honest. Not just because of the run that they've been on recently, obviously that plays a part in it, but I think Southend have severely underwhelmed me this year. You know, we talked about obviously the most important thing, which was getting their ownership issue sorted, which they managed to do. But also they've just not lived up to it on the pitch, and they are obviously they're not in danger really, and they've got too much quality to being in danger, but they are actually only 3 points off the bottom four, and they are already 8 points off the top seven. And for a team like Southend, that is almost unacceptable, especially considering you've calmed things down off the pitch. But yeah, I think Forest Green have been one of the best sides in this division in terms of consistency this year, and I do fancy them. But I think it will be interesting because at some point I do think the switch has to switch for Southend, and they will pick themselves up and pull them sort of away from that area and finish. I think Southend will finish anywhere from like 13th upwards this year. If I was to do a table prediction, that's where I would put them. So they do have a little bit of work to do, but yeah, that's another game that's sticking out to me, Lauren.
Nice. Yeah, I think if I was gonna say any others that I fancy, I think I'd have to put a very brief mention for the Fylde Ebbsfleet game, because like Ebbsfleet have to get a win from somewhere, surely. And I didn't realise that Fylde have just dropped down into the relegation zone now. In those relegation places. So I just a very quick note that I think that would be an interesting one. Because Fylde, just like we've said with Rochdale, so inconsistent. Their form is like up and down. So I just wanted to briefly say that I think that could be an interesting game.
Yes, absolutely. Just before we cut to a new partnered ad break, do you want to touch upon your game of the week and tie of the week with yours and Adam's episode last week?
Yes, I can do. So, first of all, we listed our tie of the week, the NLN tie of the week, which wouldn't have been anything else but the Forest Green versus York game. It was first versus second in the league, and whoever was going to win that was very important with positioning in the league, and it ended up being a Forest Green win. Let me just get up all my stuff. Forest Green ended up winning that game 2-0 in the end, which was not the way that, well, Adam and I both thought that they would be a draw. But it was a pretty decent game in the end. There's not much really to say other than
I've seen the highlights in that game, and I think it is worth saying, if you've not seen the highlights, it's probably two of the nicest strikes you will see in one game this year to win the game for Forest Green. Two brilliantly worked goals, and I think they just shown the quality really. I mean, don't get me wrong, York are doing superb. I still think York will be around there. You know, they've got the money behind them now. They seem to have settled their off the field issues, and they were rampant up until that point. But I felt like as a neutral, you could see the sort of gap in quality between where Forest Green currently are and where York are, even though it was first versus second. Would you agree with that being a fair assessment?
Yeah, I would do. I think the main thing is, Forest Green were EFL last season, and as much as like we've played them very recently, as a Stockport fan, and I think that you can still see that they do have that League Two quality in them. As much as I didn't back them at the start of the season, they've really pulled themselves together and got themselves on a good, really good, just quality football. It was a good game though. It was a good game. Yeah, and that was. Go on.
Sorry. Do you have a overriding score or opinion on how the ref managed the game?
You know what? I think for both this game and for the Loz's game of the week, I think they were both decent refs, really. No big qualms with the refs here. The Loz's game of the week was the Wealdstone game. Adam wanted me to cover the Wealdstone Rochdale game. And it was Wealdstone.
Oh, I think we might have lost Lauren a little bit. She's back now, I think.
I'm so
restart
back.
That sentence about Wealdstone again. I think we lost you briefly.
Okay, so yes, Adam decided that he fancied me looking at the Wealdstone game this week. And it was like a good win for Wealdstone. A nice 2-0 in the end there. They also had a goal called for offside, so they lost one of their goals. But it was I might still be jumping around here, but again, it was another quality game. Some good goals, and Wealdstone would be much the happier of the two teams in that game. Again, the ref, I think, did an all right job. I think that the offside call was probably the right decision. So
I think it's really interesting because for all that we sort of wrote Wealdstone off early season, they had a one win in the first opening 12, and you're thinking, oh my God, this could be a car crash. They've actually managed to come out of it a little bit, and obviously they're still within the battle and still not clear, of course. But if I was to make a prediction out of that bottom maybe 5 or 6 currently, I would say that they're the strongest team going in post-Christmas for that running, and I would expect them to find a way to get themselves out of it because they're showing more than enough quality. And I think we've talked about him previously on this podcast, and we have opinions on him for how he's played for both of our clubs. But I think in terms of a loan signing of the first half of the season, you have to give Alex Reid his flowers because he's gone in there. He's obviously hungry. He's obviously gone in there to kind of stick it to Mickey Mellon and Oldham a little bit and be like, this is what I can do if I get game time. And, fair play to him. He's dragging the bull by the horns a little bit, albeit he didn't score against Rochdale. I believe he had another very, very good game and he assisted the first goal. And I think he actually looks like he's got the fire back in his belly. And, if you're going to stay up in a division like this, I know it's very Michael Owen, very obvious for me to say, but goals win you games. And Alex Reid is proving to be a goal scorer at that level,
Yeah, 100%. I think as well, like we say, even if he's not involved in the goals, the upturn in form for Wealdstone does tend to it does seem to have come around the time that he was added to the team. Mm-hmm. I think that he just brings something new to the team, and everyone puts in a little bit more with him around. So, I'm really happy that it's working out for both him and the club, really.
Even though we were like massive hypocrites after what we said about him a couple of weeks ago.
Look, I never said that I didn't like him. I just said that he has a style of football that doesn't work for my team.
No, I think, and that's the first sentiment. I said that to Alex. Alex, I wish I got to speak to Alex Reid. I said that to Adam on Monday. I said, I'll be honest, I don't think Alex Reid can cut it at the top end of this division, and obviously Oldham are at the top end of this division at the minute, and Wealdstone are where they are. I think Alex Reid is he can thrive when he is the main man. You know, he is the number 9.
Yeah.
But at the minute, you're not going to get in an Oldham side ahead of James Norwood or Josh Stone. So, you know, I think that move away from him and that sort of knowing that he's going to be an important figure was really important for him. And I'm happy, and hopefully he can come back in the summer and he will have suitors and like people potentially interested, and it's a win-win because we'll make money off him and he'll be happy and go and playing his football elsewhere. So yeah, long may it continue for sure. But it is time now for us to cut to a brand new ad break, and we have a new partnership on this podcast. As you might see in the middle, the layout of the podcast today is looking a little bit different. We are partnered with Audible. Now, Audible, many people probably know about Audible, but they are the number one sort of source of audiobooks and like reading literature for people that are not too lazy to actually read physical books. That's how I would put them. I fall into that category. I love a good audio book. And to talk us through how you guys, the viewers and listeners of the National League Natter, can benefit from this new partnership with Audible, is our good friend from League One Lowdown, Jamie Johnson. So we will be back in a couple of minutes.
This podcast is in association with Audible, and they bring you a fantastic offer. 99p for 3 months of their subscription. And for that, you also get a £10 voucher to spend on whatever book you want to listen to. It could be Richard Osman's Murder Mysteries, it could be Harry Potter, it could be the heaps of football autobiographies they have on Audible as well. And for 3 months, for 99p, you get 3 months of their service. Terms and conditions do apply, and you can find those below in the description.
Amazing. I think Jamie summed it up better than I probably could. And I will definitely be taking that offer up myself, I think, Lauren. Like I said, I'm an avid audiobook listener. I love my sport autobiographies, so I will definitely be checking that out for sure. But yeah, it's nice to have a brand new ad break on the podcast, isn't it?
Very much so, very much so. We appreciate the partnership.
Of course, always. So now we are on the right side of the podcast. You know what time it is. I know what time it is. It's prediction time. Are you ready?
Hang
on.
yes.
No. It can't be prediction time yet because for some reason, you can tell I'm a little bit rusty. I have not allocated. Well, we've not allocated a tie of the week, and we've also not allocated a Loz's game of the week either. Wow, ever the professional, Lauren. This is why you were hosting last week. So before we get ahead of ourselves, let me go and give you your game of the week to start with. So you know what? I'm gonna give you you can have the game that we talked about a little bit before, and I would like you to study the because I think the more desperate at this point, just about maybe, what is it, a point or two better off. I'm going to give you Fylde versus Ebbsfleet to see if your coverage can finally help and turn Ebbsfleet's barren run at the bottom of this league into positives, and can they finally get the first 3 points, well, not the first 3 points of the season, but the first 3 points in a long long time. Are you okay with that one, Lauren?
Yes, perfect. So that's my Loz's game of the week. What are we fancying for tie of the week?
Call me biased, come for me at YouTube, but genuinely, I'm not even just saying this because I support one of the two teams. I don't think if the weather permits, I don't think there's a bigger game this weekend than Oldham Rochdale in the 12:30.
Yeah, you've got to love a derby, don't you?
And genuinely, I think the thing is, I'm going to say it quietly, but I said it on the podcast on Monday. I think for Oldham, even just taking my biases off at the minute, I think for Oldham to be in the position that they are before Christmas, to only be like 5 or 6 points off the top, I think that they are well within the sort of title challenge. And I think if you can beat another team within the playoffs and, do it professionally, that will set you up. And I will firmly start believing that we can go on and challenge for this league title if we can beat Rochdale. So I think it's a massive game for both sides. So yeah, that would be my shout. Bias or not, deal with it.
I'm gonna agree. I'm gonna say that given it's a local derby, given it's always a feisty one, let's have it as the tie of the week.
Let's do it. I can't wait to do predictions. We'll be doing predictions, and then we'll come to it on Monday, and we'll be like, so reviewing predictions. Rochdale versus Oldham. The winner was the snow. The game didn't even happen because of the snowfall in Greater Manchester. But yeah, weather permitting, I think that is going to be a corker of a game. So now I've not jumped the gun. Are you ready to look ahead and review last week's predictions?
Yes, I am very much ready to last week's predictions. So
let's do it. Take us away from last week to start with, please.
So obviously, if you weren't here last week, you will know that Aaron also wasn't here last week. So Adam stood in for the predictions for Aaron's side, as both him and Chris did for me over whilst I was away. So we didn't have a bad go this week, and by that I mean we kind of did actually. We probably should be expecting to get more points than we have been doing at the moment. But I might have come away happier out of the two of us, unfortunately, again, Aaron. I managed to get myself 9 points over the predictions. I got one completely correct. The Sutton Maidenhead 1-0. I managed to get that one correct. And you got just the 5 points this week, unfortunately.
I tell you, I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable yet, but I'm getting a little bit twitchy because Lord knows since about week 2 of this podcast, I have been giving it the big licks to you both on the podcast and on messages and text messages about this tattoo I've got lined up for you. And now there's only 7 points between us?
Yeah, so before, at some point there was like 30 points between us. Last week we finished the predictions 117 to me, 132 for you. But obviously now I've just closed the gap by another 4. So the current cumulative score is 126 versus 137. So there's 11 points between us now.
My saving grace, right? If you do somehow manage to turn this away and I get a tattoo, my only saving grace is there's a potential that next season you could be stuck on National League Natter, and because of the way the podcasts work here, hopefully Oldham gain promotion to League 2 so I can go and work on 4th Tier Fever. and then I don't have to deal with the embarrassment of losing 3 prediction leagues in 3 years. That would be a hell of a story.
It certainly would be. You've
got to be feeling confident at this point, right? Like you say, when you was in America, there was 31 points between us at some point, and I was giving it the big licks. I've already done your tattoo design. Like, That's how confident I was. I've already got Lauren's tattoo design locked in.
Yeah, it was a little bit squeaky at one point. I'm not feeling confident. I know I like to gloat a lot when I win each week. I think I've done quite well this week, not to rub it in too much.
Yeah, you have.
But I'm feeling less embarrassed about the scoreline now. I'm feeling less embarrassed about it.
I mean, it does worry me that this could be the weekend that you turn it around. You know what I mean? It's only like it's doable this week. If I have a stinker of a week and you get a couple of predictions bang on, I'm in the mud. I am in the mud or in the snow. I am in the snow. That is more appropriate for this time of year. But look, listen, I'm going to get that negative energy away. And considering I believe, I don't know who went first last week, but I know I've been making you go second on the last couple of podcasts that we've been doing together. So I will switch it up and I will let ladies go first and you can take the reins this week and do your predictions first.
I love it. Okay. I feel like that might be because you're a little bit rusty and you just want to copy mine.
See, she's starting to get confident now. The fighting talks come out.
Oh, always. It's part of the podcast. It's part of the podcast. Okay, let's get. I've got my little things written down, so let's get going. Rochdale, Oldham. Shall I be honest? Yeah, okay. I'm going to say that Oldham are going to win. They're going to win 2-0. Last week, I did a silly one for Oldham because I thought, I like Tamworth and I do think Tamworth can get results.
Yeah, but no disrespect to Tamworth, right? The one thing I will say about that last week, and the reason why I knew it was just one to go at me straight away is you guys wouldn't have been able to see.
It was.
It was because I got a message literally just as soon as Lauren had done that prediction, and it just said ha 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 or something like that. And so basically all you guys need to know is she's that fixated in getting one up on me all the time that she puts her football knowledge to the side just because she's that bothered about getting one up on me.
I would never be so unprofessional.
You? Unprofessional? Wow.
Brutal. All right, let's get back to the football.
Yes.
Aldershot versus Alty. I'm going to give Alty the win. They've come from the back of a nice win. I'm going to give Alty the win. I'm going to knock back my shots, unfortunately. I know. It's just going to be 1-0 though. It's just going to be a nice 1-0.
Nice.
Barnet Woking. I'm going to say Barnet are going to win this. Surely. At home against let's have a nosy. Yeah, at home against a side that's actually pulling themselves a little bit higher than they have been over the past few weeks. But Barnet are going to win that. And they're going to win that 3-1. 3-1 there. Boston Braintree, exciting game. And I think there will be a little bit of a new manager bounce, you know? At least I'm going to predict that there will be one. So I'm going to say that Boston are going to win this game 2-1. Nice. 2-1 there. Eastleigh Wealdstone, I think where they are in the league is deceiving. I think Eastleigh, at some point, their form should take a turn and become a bit stronger. But I just can't see anything but a Wealdstone win here. I think that they're just absolutely flying at the moment. And this week might be the week that changes, but for now...
Because you've said it now, so exactly. You know Eastleigh are going to get the win.
Yeah, I've jinxed them now, but I'm going to say it's going to be 2-0 to Wealdstone. It's going to be 2-0 to Wealdstone. Fylde and Ebbsfleet, I'm going to say... You know what? I'm going to be bold. It's going to be... Okay, I'm not going to be that bold. It's going to be a draw. It's going to be a draw. I
love this part of the podcast because it's no longer just me versus Lauren. It's me versus Lauren and Lauren's head.
Yeah, I was going to go Ebbsfleet win, but I don't think I can bring myself to do that. Wow. I'm going to call it a 1-1 draw. Fylde Ebbsfleet.
Nice.
It's going to be a point for Ebbsfleet, but it's just not going to be enough to challenge just yet. Halifax Sutton. I'm going to say Sutton are going to win that. 2-0, I think. I think that's going to be the case. Maidenhead, Gateshead. Gateshead have just got the confidence from the new deal. I think that they're gonna have a good game. They're gonna have a good game. It's gonna be a 2-1. It's gonna be 2-1 for Maidenhead and Gateshead. Solihull versus Hartlepool. I can't see anything other than a Solihull win here. I mean, they did an awesome job last week. 6-0. I mean, there were 10 players on either side of the pitch. But I think that Solihull will win here. They've got the confidence from that. And I'm just going to give them a 1-0. Just a 1-0 for Solihull. Southend, Forest Green. Again, it might be a really safe prediction, but I think Forest Green are going to win this. Again, I think they've got the confidence to do so. They've got the quality to do so. And Southend just need to kick themselves into gear at the moment. But I think it's going to be hard against a really, really quality Forest Green side. So Forest Green are going to win 3-0.
Nice.
Tamworth Daggers. Look, I'm going to keep predicting a Tamworth win until they win. So I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-0 Tamworth win. Nice. And then York Yeovil. I'm going to go a bit rogue. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw in that one.
Is that your first draw of the week?
No, there was a draw between Fylde and Ebbsfleet as well. 1-1.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was going to say that's quite unusual for you. You normally they're the chief fencer.
Oi. Well, they're my predictions. So, Aaron, do you want to bless us with your predictions, and then I will run through ours next to each other?
Let's do it. So, my head says that the weather might come out on top in this game, looking at the snowfall currently outside my house. But my heart says that the game will be on and it'll be a 3-1 Oldham Athletic away win, sending the away support absolute loop dogs. That's what we want. So, nice. Yeah, 3-1 Oldham. Shots versus Alty. Alty are slowly starting to climb, aren't they? They're slowly starting to climb. And I think they will continue to climb. I'm going to go 2-1 Alty.
Very nice.
Barnet Woking. Now, again, my heart says Barnet win, but I'm actually going to overrule it with my head. And I think Woking have finally got a big 3 points last weekend after, not winning since the 10th of September. And Woking have proved that they can be a difficult side to beat. And I don't know. I think Barnet are the winning games, but they are also conceding a lot of goals at the minute, and I don't know how much longer that game sort of style and plan can be sustainable. So I'm gonna go for a cheeky 1-1 draw between Barnet and Woking.
Oh, sitting on the fence early. I like it.
Boston Braintree. Again, I've been talking about new manager bounces, but I don't just want to be accused of copying you the whole list. So I don't know what to do. No, actually, I'm here for myself, not for you. I don't think about you as much as you think about me when it comes to these predictions. So I am gonna say a cheeky, very, very needed 1-0 Boston United win.
Nice.
Eastleigh, Wealdstone. I am going to say a 2-1 Wealdstone win.
2-1 Wealdstone win. You're going
Fylde
very
are
similar
gonna be-
directions to me at the moment.
Yes, some might say it's tactical. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
Some might.
Fylde, Ebbsfleet. I am going to say 3-1 Fylde with Nick Horton probably running the show because he turns up when they need him the most. Halifax versus Sutton. I will go 1-1.
Nice.
Maidenhead, Gateshead. I think there'll be a 2-1 away win for the Heed. I think Solihull have been amazing, but this is my first upset of the card. Something tells me that Hartlepool United are gonna turn up because I know. So the last game of Hartlepool's I watched was the 5-3 versus York away to York, and obviously York won that. Like I just said, 5-3 in the end, but Hartlepool did have the chances in that game, and it could have been a different game. I thought they were decent. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 away win to Hartlepool. Sorry, Callum, we love you. Southend, Forest Green. 3-0 Forest Green Rovers.
Copycat.
Tamworth Daggers. I am going to say 2-1 Dagenham and Redbridge. And York versus Yeovil. I am going to say 1-1.
Oh, lovely. All right, the only one I missed there was the Hartlepool Solihull one.
Hartlepool Solihull. I am going to say 2-1 to Hartlepool.
2-1 to Hartlepool. Lovely. All right. Well, in which case, I will do a very speedy run through of the predictions from this week. So, in the Rochdale Oldham game, if the game is to go ahead, we've both gone for an Oldham win. I've gone 2-0, you've gone 3-1. In the Aldershot Alty game, we've both gone for an Alty win. I've gone 1-0, you've gone 2-1. In the Barnet Woking game, I've gone for a 3-1 Barnet win. You've gone for a 1-1 draw. In the Boston Braintree game, we both think that there might be a little bit of a Boston new manager bounce. I've gone for 2-1, you've gone for 1-0 to Boston. Eastleigh versus Eastleigh versus Wealdstone. Wealdstone, we've both gone for a Wealdstone win. I've gone 2-0, you've gone 2-1. Fylde versus Ebbsfleet. I've gone for a 1-1 draw in this game. You've gone for a 3-1 Fylde win. Halifax versus Sutton. I've gone for a 2-0 Sutton win. You've gone for a 1-1 draw. Maidenhead and Gateshead. We both agree on a 2-1 win for Gateshead. Solihull versus Hartlepool. I've gone 1-0 to Solihull. You've gone 2-1 to Hartlepool. We've both gone 3-0 Forest Green win against Southend. I've gone for a 2-0 Tamworth win. You've gone for a 2-1 Daggers win. And finally, we've both gone for a draw between York City and Yeovil. I've gone 2-2. You've gone 1-1.
I am happy with that. I think that's quite tight. And hopefully my tactics, my big brain play will mean even if I lose there, like it's not enough for you to claw back and go on top heading into next week. That's how I've tried to play it. But football never works with gamesmanship. So we shall see what the match day 19 in the National League serves up for us. And I will be back on Monday. Hopefully it will be with Chris, because me and Chris now haven't recorded together for about a month and a half, which is crazy, really. We've just both been very busy people, but hopefully Chris will be back. If not, it could be Lauren, it could be Adam. It's a bit like the wheel. You don't know who's going to come up and play. It'll be one of the three joining me, I'm sure. If not, you'll have to get a solo podcast of these beautiful Mancunian tones. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. But in the meantime, we will see you in the week. We have been the National League Natter, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.